On this episode of Healthier Workplaces, we'll talk about AIHA's Pride Special Interest Group.
Things of that nature, just because I think, at least from when I went to the conference this past May, it was really great to kind of be back in person and just be in a room of hundreds of other IHs and safety professionals. I forgot how that felt. And so I wanted to kind of even make that further kind of make a community of LGBTQ plus individuals that have the same interests, and how to recognize and identify those individuals and make those connections at conference and across workplaces, so that we can really kind of leverage all of our expertise and experiences across the board.
Welcome to the Healthier Workplaces Show, a program dedicated to highlighting the efforts of industry professionals who protect our workers and their communities from occupational and environmental hazards. I'm Bob Krell, founder and publisher of Healthy Indoors magazine, and your host for this new program from AIHA. Over the past few years, there has been a heightened emphasis on creation of and expansion to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, otherwise known as DEI, in the workplace. These programs reinforce cultures of psychological safety among workers who increasingly come from diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and life experiences. This week, we meet three members of AIHA's new Pride Special Interest Group to learn about their team's goals. When we come back, we'll sit down with Mike Iardi, April Clayton, and Jake Shedd. Stay with us.
Here's our consultant, Sarah. She's always looking for ways to grow her network and increase her business. But advertising is expensive. There are lots of competitors, and sometimes she has trouble finding the right audience. Luckily for Sarah, the American Industrial Hygiene Association, AIHA, offers the perfect low-cost solution, the AIHA Consultants Listing. This listing is the perfect resource for consumers and businesses, and especially for those in need of highly specialized and qualified industrial hygienists. Every year, AIHA sends the Consultants Listing to thousands of decision makers nationwide in a variety of industries, including legal, real estate, trade associations, academics, hospitals, and all levels of government, including most federal agencies. It's also readily available online through their website. Sarah had no idea the Consultants Listing was such a valuable low-cost resource. Now she knows getting into the directory makes perfect sense to better her business. It didn't take long before Sarah found her network expanding, and she was even pulling ahead of her competitors. The AIHA Consultants Listing, your link to building a larger network.
Just the fact that we have the special interest group that AIHA approved. It was just recently, right? Just July. So this was something that has this been in the works for a while?
Not really. So I think the idea came about this past conference, just in May. And so over the summer, I helped to kind of put together a proposal, and it was presented at the board meeting in July. So it was a pretty quick turnaround from inception to having it be a realized group within the AIHA.
Excellent. And obviously, the discussion of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, it makes full sense to actually have, I think, a special interest group in your organization to address these issues. But how are these issues? How do you see these issues as perhaps being different for the LGBTQ community as far as health and safety goes? I mean, are there different aspects that that happen in the workplace as a result of orientation and that sort of thing? I mean, is that something that because I see that in the commentary on the post from AIHA, and I don't know who wrote this, so I'd like to know what the what your intent is and what your goals for the special interest group are.
Yeah, so I can start there. So I had written this blog post,
Okay.
but I think the intentions are twofold. The first would be to kind of discover, I think, some of these potentially disproportional health effects that LGBTQ plus individuals might experience from workplace exposures. And I think that research is just kind of really getting started. So I would, for this group, it would be great if that could be something that we really get involved with, start to spur research, work with other researchers across academic institutions and organizations, government organizations who might also be in this space. I think researching in this space, I think it's very novel, and we just don't at this point understand what types of disproportionate health effects might be affecting this group. And then kind of as a second piece to that is also bringing together LGBTQ plus individuals within our profession so that we can advocate for our community and give back to the community through research and form our own community within AIHA.
Well, let's talk in terms of the research. I mean, is there currently research being conducted formally on this, or is this something that you as your group in AIHA is trying to spur on?
There are papers that are out there right now. I can't really think of any working titles, but definitely when I was doing some research, just thinking about some points that we could address, maybe as the special interest group, there are quite a few publications that are out there already.
And there's also currently a nationwide study going on called the PRIDE study. Stands for the Population Research in Identity and Disparities for Equality Study. It's out of Stanford and University of California, San Francisco. And I think they're looking more at just health effects generally of the queer population. So I think where our group could come in and other industrial hygienists and safety professionals could really help out is that workplace aspect of overall health. And how the workplace affects health.
So I'm assuming you're all in this special interest group. That's how we ended up together on the show today, right? You're all actively engaged in this group.
Right. Yeah. So
and by that,
Yeah.
let me rephrase
that's
that.
correct.
What I meant by that was I meant that as far as the new special interest group for AIHA.
correct. Yeah. So we're part of
how many
the
how many
board.
people are on that? It's not a committee; it's a special interest group, right? So it's how many individuals are participating in it right now? I guess is the question I had.
Yeah. So we three are the new board that was nominated by the board of AIHA. And then so we have yet to have our first group meeting, but I think there's about 20 to 30 individuals who have kind of expressed interest through our open call announcement for participation in the group.
So I guess I'd ask too how did this come about that this was even proposed to the board? I mean, obviously somebody had to create an initiative to bring this to the board as a proposal, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, that would be Mike. We'll give him the credit he deserves for that one because he started this up.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I'm just curious. Was it well received going in and initially, or was did you get pushback, or
No. So I mean, we put together the proposal over the summer. I worked with a colleague here at ChemRisk who's on the board, and she was able to put me in touch with Larry. We had talked about it a little bit. I sent him the proposal before the board meeting so that he could take a look and get some input on it. And then it was presented to the board at their July meeting, and it was unanimously approved. So no pushback. And I think just a really excitement from the board behind the group.
Fabulous. So April, you're an anomaly in this group in that you are in private sector and you're also serve in the military as well. So you have a I think maybe a more of an overview perspective on serving the public in the military capacity, but also you're in that in healthcare, right? You work in a healthcare facility.
Yes, that's correct. So Yeah, I definitely would say I have a maybe interesting perspective being a queer service member and also on the civilian side, um, working in a healthcare associated space.
Are are you finding that which I guess I have to ask this question because which is it more challenging in a military setting for you than in a in a just a regular public sector as far as
So
career
I
wise,
think, right, yeah, no, I understand. I think each have their own different challenges. In my experience, I think um, I would say probably in the civilian space, um, I think I've actually met more queer people in the military than I have in the civilian space, which I think is actually very cool. But I think being able to find and be in a safe space where you can be your most authentic self, I think has challenges, or I've experienced challenges. Um, in both spheres. But I must say, like, the people that I see as my leaders have been welcoming. And that I'm very grateful for. But I would say the challenges are different. I don't know if I would say one is more challenging than the other, if that makes sense.
sure, totally. So different parameters that you're dealing in.
Mm-hmm.
So the second one would be to to create a community within AIHA where LGBTQ plus industrial hygienists, safety professionals can work together, can form mentor-mentee relationships, things of that nature. Just because I think, at least from when I went to the conference this past May, it was really great to kind of be back in person and just be in a room of hundreds of other IHs and safety professionals. I forgot how that felt. And so I wanted to kind of even make that like further kind of make a community of LGBTQ plus individuals that have the same interests, and how to recognize and identify those individuals and make those connections at conference and across workplaces, so that we can really kind of leverage all of our expertise and experiences across the board.
Makes sense. The acronym, the PRIHDE, that's a play, right? With the IH in there.
Correct. Yeah.
So how did you come up with that? And is that something that you and the group actually authored?
Yeah, that was part of the proposal. So that was just kind of me playing around with the word pride and then putting IH in there. So I had just kind of put it out there in the proposal to the board, and just as a potential name, but it really stuck. So I like it too. And in the original proposal, I put it in rainbow. It had enough colors to fit the rainbow, which was pretty cool.
There you go.
Enough letters.
Well, it definitely, when Ben first, proposed us doing this show, he, I saw that acronym. And was like, and it jumped out at me because it's like, well, I haven't seen that one ever before.
Yeah.
with the
It
little
worked well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really important when you're trying to get attention, you're trying to collectively get people together. You have to have some messaging that sticks. I mean, how do we go about in incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion, into that, what has been at least a fairly stodgy, and at least in the past, occupational environmental health and safety, profession path. I mean, again, and I think it's evolved massively in the last 15 or 20 years, but still long ways to go. So how what are some of the steps that you all think that, can be done, and maybe that your special interest group can help foster within AIHA to help get to those ends?
I mean,
So putting that out there.
I'll take a crack at this one.
There you go.
I mean, I think one of the major things is just representation. And that's kind of one of the things we've talked about in this group, is just being here and bringing awareness to the fact that, yes, there are queer people in the workplace. As you mentioned, the field has been quote unquote stodgy in years past. But especially as newer early career professionals are entering, you're seeing a more diverse population, both in the workplace, but especially in the IH specialty. You're seeing more women, you're seeing more people of color, you're seeing more queer people coming in, and just having that recognition that, hey, this isn't just a space for white baby boomers anymore. There is more diversity, and just kind of being aware that each person has their own experience that they bring to the table that gives them their own unique approach to occupational health and safety.
Well, and it makes sense that the space, that this whole career path space is more representative of society in general, right? And it's never good when there's, when it's exclusively represented by, a dominant group there. It just doesn't make sense. So this is really great. And the fact that, your organization is at least, supporting your efforts, I think is huge too, because it's obviously you need support from the board, board level to be able to start to move some initiatives forward.
I just wanted to echo, if I may add, just echo Jake as well. And I think it's also important that we do have the support from AIHA. And I could definitely, I think it's also important that when we have institutions, take an authentic stance, and it's not performative. I think that's where the real work can begin. And I think something that I'm excited about this group doing is really adding an LGBTQ plus lens in the charge towards occupational health equity for queer people.
I think, yeah, and really to echo that, April, I think in this case it really is important that it's not just window dressing, that they actually are, as an organization, the organization is actually promoting, going here, as opposed to, just saying, well, we've got that covered, we checked that box, and in the sheet. So you really feel that there's good support at board level across the board on your initiatives?
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's huge.
I think one of the things I was told by Larry, the president or the CEO, of AIHA, was that the board unanimously approved the Pride SIG to become a special interest group, which is amazing, because that's just kind of showing that a lot of the old guard we've been talking about really are supportive of the diversity efforts that are coming in, and they have recognized through the years that the association has not necessarily represented the workforce as best as it could, which is amazing.
Yeah, and that's super important. I mean, obviously, an organization like AIHA, or really any of the silos, in the various organizations that represent different disciplines in the industry, it is really important that you represent society in general and your workforce in general. And if you just represent one aspect of the workforce, that almost promotes keeping that workforce very. I can't even think of the term I'm looking for, but just very monolithic, right? I guess that's the term I was looking for. And so it's refreshing to actually see some, at least forward motion in that. We'll be back after this.
When I was a student, somebody helped me. I think it's my responsibility now that I found some success in this profession to help others. In my opinion, you can't see yourself as successful if you're not helping other people. We as industrial hygienists, EHS professionals, need to give back to secure that students are well prepared and supported in their educational endeavors. Look at it as paying it forward. Somebody helped me get to where I am, so I'm helping others to achieve their dreams. We all have to make sacrifices in life, but this is a gift that we can take pride in giving back through the foundation. Opening doors. It's that basic. It's easy for us to open doors and usher future EHS professionals along the path that we traveled when we were students. Sit back and think about the start of your industrial hygiene journey. How many people helped you get to where you are now? How expensive was school back then and how much more expensive it is now? Now think about how your giving will go into investing into that next CIH or EHS professional. Lead by example. Some folks helped me get to where I am, so I'm just doing my part. And it feels good to know that I'm contributing to the future of our profession. The foundation makes it easy in so many ways to make a gift, and I've seen firsthand how my giving has been appreciated by students. So do your part. Give back.
Question for all of you is, what are some of your immediate goals with your special interest group here at AIHA, and maybe we can even discuss some wish list longer term goals that you're looking to achieve.
Yeah, I think in terms of immediate goals, it's just trying to get the group out there. Like Jake said, just make it more recognized so that people understand that this is a group that you can get involved with. And I think also immediately trying to just forge collaborations with other interest groups and committees within AIHA, and then also beyond that. So what other organizations within government agencies like NIASH or OSHA could we collaborate with on different programs that involve equity, protecting susceptible, vulnerable workers, and then maybe more longer term, I think some of this research that we've been talking about plays into that, and just generally kind of helping AIHA with its own DEI initiatives and bringing that lens where we can, and kind of spurring just progression on DEI initiatives.
I mean, DEI in general is something that, it has been an uphill battle in years past, certainly. I mean, I think we're a long ways from where we need to be in all workforces, but certainly it seems like I've, seen at least some motion in the last several years. It seems there has been positive motion, I think, which is refreshing and reassuring that maybe, progress is capable of happening, but still not an easy path, is it? I mean,
no, I think it's definitely an uphill battle, but everything's, I think, moving in the right direction. I think that progression, it's going to happen slowly but surely. It's not going to be like an overnight thing where you flip a switch and all workplaces are diverse, everyone is attuned to DEI. So I think it's initiatives like these that push the needle forward just a little bit, and just a little bit, and then looking back 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, we'll see just the amount of progression that we've accomplished.
So let's talk about some of those, in your envisionment, all three of you, your envisionment of where you would like to see AIHA be, and where you'd like to see just the industry in general be, for your career paths in the occupational, environmental, health, and safety areas.
So in general, I don't think workplace safety and health is going anywhere as long as there's people working. Like, we've got job security, so that's great. But as far as like development goes, it would be nice to see DEI not be so closely associated with politics and with quote unquote like moral ideologies. It's something that should be apolitical. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are, what your ideologies are. People exist whether you like it or not, and people should be allowed to exist without needing your permission to take up space in the world. So kind of seeing that permeate, especially in the occupational health world, a lot of the jobs that we have are very blue collar, a lot of factory manufacturing. So you're dealing with a group of people who traditionally may not be very DEI minded or open minded for that matter to experiences outside of their own. So kind of getting them to the point where they don't feel threatened. It's not a change. It's not anything that's going to affect them at all. It's just getting them to realize, hey, there's other people in this workplace that need to feel comfortable too.
We're certainly, unfortunately, we're in a political cycle right now in this country. We're polarized as anything, as a country, and I would concur that just like you said, Jake. This shouldn't be a political issue. It shouldn't really be a belief system. It's right and wrong, really. I mean, that's what it comes down to, and that should transgress across all, whatever political ideology you have, or whatever religious ideology you have. You really should, there's just, it doesn't make any sense to me that that we have to that we have to constantly be creating these situations where we're so very divided, and
So I was just going to say, and as industrial hygienists and safety professionals too, I think and there was a great article in the Synergist about this topic, maybe a year and a half ago, but just how DEI programs help to foster a workplace culture that's psychologically safe. So how can we as IHs and safety professionals, not only are we looking at physical stressors in the workplace, biological, chemical, but also these psychological stressors. And I think robust DEI programs that are inclusive of everyone, that have worker involvement, are going to be so important to help fostering those psychologically safe workplaces as well.
And April, again, you're dealing both in a military setting, and also in a healthcare setting. So two totally different environments, I would imagine. The aspect of the occupational health and safety, the actual physical safety, I think maybe those requirements are similar, but again, going back to the whole mental feeling emotionally safe in the environment, are there different ways that you have to address those in your career, and the two different hats that you wear?
So, I would say yes. In the military sphere, I think I'm very fortunate to be serving in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard, because we have leaders who are, I would say, very upfront about equity and inclusion, and what does that mean for our Army and how that's in alignment with the Army values. And I think when we navigate those kinds of conversations, I think it does have to come from the top and be pushed down, so that there's this ethos, right, that, we can be our authentic selves. And when that's not supported, there are chains or avenues that we can take to make sure that soldier is being wholly protected, right? So, physically and mentally. So I think, where I am, I have definitely felt that from leaders that at least I'm around. And I think that can be very powerful, right? Because if you see people, not only just, speak the language, but actually it's not performative, right? They're taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. I think in the Army National, or at least kind of where I am, we have an equal opportunity advisor front and center. Like, we see him walking around, and he takes action when there are actions that need to be taken. And I think things like that means a lot to soldiers. I know it means a lot to me as a person who is a queer Black woman in the Army, right? And so it's not just, somebody coming up there and saying what they think needs to be said, or, per this Army, latest notification, I have to say this. It's not that kind of language. It's true and it's sincere. And I think that, I know if it means a lot to me, I could imagine it means a lot to other soldiers too who hear it.
I mean, that seems super important.
Yeah. So, I've got to say I'm very fortunate to be in that sphere. I think I think both in the public and the military spheres, I think we still have a long way to go, but I can see the work being done and the work being done authentically. Not to say that it's not without its challenges, but and I would say as a medical officer, it's also important to not stigmatize behavioral health and mental health hygiene. I think, we do tend to focus on, when we think about forced health protection, right? We also have to think about, psychological well-being too.
Sure.
So I think I'm hopeful that the Army is moving in the right direction, towards comprehensive and holistic health of the soldier. I can speak on my civilian experience.
Yeah, please do,
like,
because it's interesting that you have that dual perspective, both serving in the military and and actually working for a medical facility.
I will say where I work, I do believe kind of I think the conversations are the same. I think there's definitely been a re-energized focus on DEI. And I guess for me, when I see it being sincerely, actioned out, I think that's where the real change comes, when you're teaching people to move from being a bystander, right, to an upstander, when you can create a space where people can openly, call out, microaggressions or call out behavior that is leading to certain people to not be comfortable, right, and pushing them to the margins. So I think, I've seen that upward trend where we're now creating workspaces where, we can call that out, and it's without punition, right? And so I think having these avenues of accountability, both in the military and the civilian spheres, and it actually leading to action, I think is what means the most to me. And I definitely could see, DISIG helping to further that across the diversity of workplaces that we have, whether somebody may be openly queer or not. But hopefully that's, their choice, and they don't feel like they're in a psychologically unsafe space where they can't be openly queer. But I could definitely see our SIG kind of being that voice and that guiding light to really help institutions think about DEI in the environmental health and safety workspace, overlaid with queerness.
I mean, do you believe? So April, you expressed that. Do you think we're getting a lot better as far as the openness in the workplace for people to be able to call out areas where they feel uncomfortable, or other, if you're observing some activity going on that it doesn't seem right, the way somebody's being treated, are we in a better space now, you think, just across the nation and maybe even across the globe, where we can actually call out things that aren't right, without having some sort of retribution, in the workplace? Because that hasn't been the case in the past.
I'm going to be cautiously optimistic and say yes, but I think there's still more work to do, which is why groups like us are important, right? I think we still need to keep up the momentum, right? Like, it just can't be a moment, right? It has to be this continuous movement, right, towards the you kind of along this arc of equity and inclusion, right? So in my experience, I think it has gotten better. I did not come out until I was 29, and so kind of seeing places be more welcoming to having people be openly queer, I've definitely experienced that improvement since I got a real job after grad school. So
real job. So we're running out of time, but what I'd like to do is let each of you, and I'm just posing this now, closing thought or some thought that we didn't cover because we kind of, this was a really quick discussion with the four of us.
A closing thought that I have is that, I am hopeful that this SIG has come at the right time. So I thank you, Mike, for your leadership and your drive. I think we have a lot of work to do. I think it's going to be a lot of good work in really adding this queer lens to occupational and environmental health so that we can work towards the charge of having comprehensive worker health in, every single workplace. And, I think I'm very fortunate to be part of this. So those are my closing thoughts. So I'm excited to work with Mike and Jake and the 25 and hopefully growing members that we have in Pride.
Excellent.
Yeah, I guess I can echo some of that. I think entering the workforce as a 23, 24-year-old, even though I was out, I think it was still quite scary to be out in the workplace. You didn't really know what that meant, what that looked like. So having an entire profession that I found myself to be in, that I trained for, be supportive of who I am as an individual and really want groups like ours to go out there and support our communities who are in the workforce and our communities within the profession has just been really inspiring and encouraging, and has given me a lot of energy over the past couple of months as we've kind of gotten this off the ground, meeting new people, getting to work with April and Jake on these initiatives. So I'm just, as April said, just kind of really hopeful for our group that we can do something positive for our profession and for the LGBTQ plus community in general.
Excellent.
And I guess I'll wrap things up. Just kind of along the same lines as what Mike and April have already said. The major things that I want listeners to know about our SIG is that this SIG is open to everybody. Whether you are closeted, whether you are out and proud, whether you're an ally, whether you're just trying to get more information and try to understand. We're here to support you, and this is a safe place. And I feel like we need to make sure to say that as somebody who is, I may not have the work experience that say like Mike or April do, just because I'm fresh out of grad school and just in my first job, but I have been involved with AIHA for nearly 10 years now as a student in undergrad throughout my graduate days. And having been closeted through a lot of that and having come out with just in the last couple of years, really both personally and professionally, like I understand how important it is to feel safe. Because I don't know a few years ago, while I was still closeted, if I would have felt comfortable even attending a meeting like this for fear of, is that information going to get out? How is that going to affect my ability to network professionally? Like, what is that going to do as I try to build my brand and my career? So just kind of doubling down on we are welcome and we are safe for everybody. If you want to be or if you are closeted and you want to stay closeted, you're safe. We're not going to tell anybody. You don't have to tell us if you're closeted or if you're not, like that. Do whatever makes you feel comfortable, but you will be safe with our SIG.
So that's our show for this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new show. Until next time, I'm Bob Krell. Thanks again for watching, and stay healthy.